For this episode of the Tombstone Tourist, I'm at Union Cemetery in Humboldt, Iowa. I drove over from Sioux City, and for about the past hour or so, I've been trying to outrun the rain. But just as I pulled into the cemetery, the rain caught up with me. And checking the weather radar, it looks like it's going to be with me for the next few hours. So, I'm probably going to have to record most of this from inside my car. Humboldt is a small town in north central Iowa, a couple of hours northwest of Iowa's capital city. And it's here, in this community cemetery, that we find the final resting place of noted broadcast journalist Harry Reasoner. Harry Truman Reasoner was born in Dakota City, Iowa on April 17, 1923. He attended West High School in Minneapolis, Minnesota, graduating in 1940. While in high school, he developed an interest in journalism. He studied journalism at both Stanford University and the University of Minnesota. His studies was interrupted by his service in the United States Army during World War II. And after completing his military service, he returned to Minneapolis and took a job at the Minneapolis Times. A few years later, Harry left the newspaper and took a job with a local Minneapolis TV station. Harry decided that he liked television more than being a print journalist, and in 1956, he moved to New York and took a job with CBS News. In 1963, Harry played a vital role in the network's coverage of the assassination of President Kennedy. From the time the story broke at about 1:40 in the afternoon until 6 p.m. that evening, the network's coverage had been anchored by Charles Collingwood and Walter Cronkite. At 6 p.m., Harry took over as the network's anchor and was on the air when Air Force One arrived back in Washington. He was also on the air later that evening when Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested for the murder of Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit. On Sunday morning, November 24, 1963, the network interrupted a report by Roger Mudd and switched to Harry at the anchor desk for breaking news from Dallas, where they are about to move Lee Harvey Oswald. A scuffle has broken out in the basement of the police station. When the network picked up live coverage from local affiliate KRLD, Oswald was already on the floor, and you could hear a local reporter saying, "Oswald's been shot. Oswald's been shot." A short time later, Walter Cronkite replaced Harry at the anchor desk, and it was Cronkite who announced Oswald's death. In 1968, Harry teamed with Mike Wallace to launch an hour-long weekly news magazine show called 60 Minutes. It was on 60 Minutes that some people say Harry was at his best. He often did the softer feel-good stories, leaving the harder ambush-style stories to Mike Wallace. In 1970, Harry left 60 Minutes and CBS and moved to ABC, where he joined Howard K. Smith to co-anchor the ABC Evening News. Harry and Smith stayed together until 1975, when Smith moved to the role of commentator. Harry was then paired with Barbara Walters, who had been lured away from NBC. But there was a number of reasons that the pairing didn't work, and the ABC Evening News plunged in the ratings. After struggling with Walters for 2 years, Harry made the decision to leave ABC and return to CBS. Back at CBS, he resumed his duties on 60 Minutes, along with being a contributor for CBS Evening News. For the next 10 years, Harry and the 60 Minutes crew remained the network's most popular show. Harry was diagnosed with lung cancer and underwent surgery and treatment in 1987 and again in 1989. Throughout his illness, he continued his duties with 60 Minutes until he retired on May 19, 1991. 3 months later, Harry suffered a fall at his Connecticut home that was caused by a blood clot on the brain. He passed away at the age of 68 on August 6, 1991, and was laid to rest with his parents and other family members here in Union Cemetery in Humboldt, Iowa. Harry Reasoner is not the only notable person resting here in Union Cemetery. As I was leaving, I made a quick stop at the private mausoleum of the Gotch family. Here is the final resting place of professional wrestler Frank Gotch. Gotch wrestled back in the early part of the 20th century when wrestling was a legitimate sport, unlike the costume characters that we see today. Frank Gotch was born here in Humboldt on April 27, 1877, and was raised on a small farm just outside of town. As a teen, he started wrestling and soon was regarded as the unofficial local champion. He wrestled his first professional match in April of 1899 here in Humboldt. 2 months later, he wrestled the reigning American heavyweight champion, Don McLeod. The match lasted close to 2 hours, with McLeod coming out on top. A few months later, Gotch challenged farmer Martin Burns, who was also a former American champion. Gotch also lost that match, but so impressed the farmer that he agreed to train him. Under the farmer's tutelage, Frank traveled throughout the Hawkeye State before heading to the Yukon, where he became known as the champion of the Klondike. Frank returned to Iowa in 1903 and had a series of matches with American champions Tom Jenkins and Fred Beal. Over the next couple of years, the trio traded the title in a series of matches before Gotch set his sights on the World Heavyweight Championship held by George Hackenschmidt. The two men finally met on April 3, 1908 in Chicago. It was a grueling match that lasted more than 2 hours, but Gotch finally trapped the champion in his signature toe hold, forcing Hackenschmidt to submit and relinquish the title to Gotch. The two men met again on September 4th, 1911, again in Chicago, but this time the match was held at the new Kaminsky Park. The rematch drew a crowd of 30,000 and a record gate of over $87,000. Although the match wasn't nearly as grueling, lasting a little over 30 minutes, the outcome was exactly the same. Gotch defeated Hackenschmidt once again with his patented toe hold. Frank Gotch remained the world heavyweight champion from 1908 until he retired in 1913, making him one of the longest reigning champions of the 20th century. After retiring, Frank joined the circus, traveling around offering to pay any man $250 if he could last 15 minutes without being pinned or giving up. He never had to pay. Frank began having health problems, which forced him to leave the circus and return to Humboldt. Back home, his health continued to decline, and he was only 40 years old when he died on December 16, 1917. He is entombed here with the rest of his family in the family mausoleum. From a very rainy Humboldt, Iowa, I'm going to end this video and continue my journey across the Hawkeye State. If you've heard of Frank Gotch or remember Harry Reasoner, or any of the people that we visit in these videos, please be sure to leave me a comment. Most of my content on this channel is cemetery related, and a new tombstone video posts every Sunday morning. If you want to keep up with all of my travels, be sure to ring that bell and subscribe. And of course, a thumbs up is always appreciated. So, until next time, please remember, life is a wonderful journey. Take time and enjoy it. And I'll see you down the road. So long, everyone.